Good evening, everybody. It's Thursday night, and it's we talking about sports here with a special podcast. It's UFC 299. It's fight week. Two more sleeps. Ben, how excited are you to talk about this tonight?
Yeah, I'm pretty pumped, and we've been waiting for this one. We say that obviously they're trying to warm us up for the big UFC 300 card, but this card is arguably just as good, if not better. With the lineup of fights that they've got. So, really been looking forward to it. This is one that I'm I made plans for. A couple months back with
Yep.
some family. We said we're going to get together to watch this one. So yeah, eager to talk about this one tonight.
Hey, and I'm glad you talked about, warming up for UFC 300. And before we get into the card, which Ben alluded to is absolutely loaded for UFC 299, you did mention, the sentiment of UFC 299 versus UFC 300. Some people, questioning the matchups in UFC 300. I know a lot of people lately, whether or not their true meaning behind questioning it is true or not, but people are questioning the BMF title fight, saying that doesn't make sense. People were a little underwhelmed with the Jamal Hill versus Pereira announcement. Ben, I know you're not, quote unquote, a casual. You watch, pretty much every UFC event that you can. What are your thoughts on that? You alluded to it a little bit, but do you think 299 is better than 300, or do you still think 300's got a little bit more juice?
I mean, I think up at the top, with the main event, it's just right now O'Malley kind of has, I would say, the MMA world. Pereira is, a double champ. Jamal Hill coming back from injury, some might say a little bit too soon. We know that there was a lot of people that were pretty upset that Dana White was building up that UFC 300 main event announcement, and they felt that it didn't live up to the hype with that fight. They thought that they were going to get something bigger. We know Leon Edwards was rumored to have three different opponents or whatever, but for me, I just feel like O'Malley is just a superstar in MMA, and I don't think that. I mean, Pereira is really not a superstar as far as household names or people. I had a divisional trainer with me riding around this week at work, and I was even talking about him with the fights. He asked me, "What are you doing this week?" And I said, "Man, I'm looking forward to these fights." And then he asked who's fighting, and this is a dude, he doesn't watch UFC. You can tell this is an older man,
Yeah.
whatever. He does it. And I said, "Oh, O'Malley's fighting." He goes, "Oh, O'Malley," and he goes, "Oh, that's the guy I remember with Snoop Dogg and this and that." So this is a guy that the casualist of casuals know who Sean O'Malley is. He's a guy that has a lot of fans, has some people that just want to see him lose. And they, as long as there's eyes on the fight, he's a guy that gets eyes on fights. We know he's fighting Cheeto. We'll get into that later, but I just feel like O'Malley's the biggest superstar right now as far as the next few pay-per-views that they have lined up. So I think that that's why this one has a bigger feel to it.
Yeah, I'm glad I got your take on that because that has been going around for quite some time ever since they announced that Pereira and Hill matchup. Well, let's not waste any more time because we do got a loaded card to talk through, and we're gonna start at the opener for the main card. It's Peter No Mercy Yan versus Sedong. What's his name?
The Kung Fu Kid.
The Kung Fu Kid Song. Last three for Peter Young have not gone so well. I think he's on a three-fight losing skid dating back to his rematch with Aljamain Sterling, lost to O'Malley in that controversial decision there in, I think it was Abu Dhabi, and then his last outing against Marab, who what you guys saw what he did last time out. And then Yadong Song, his last two against Chris Gutierrez and Ricky Simone, not quite the name value. You see the lines here. It's minus 125 plus 105 for Song Yadong on the comeback. He is a younger fighter. He's a pretty aggressive guy. He likes to let his hands fly. Peter Yan on a losing streak. Ben, do you think the veteran's going to get back on track here?
Um, I When I first saw this fight be made, from what I saw in Song's last fight, he fought Chris Gutierrez, and I was actually on Chris Gutierrez. He fought Ricky Simone. I was on Ricky Simone. So I've been burned by this guy, quite a few times. I've been fading him. He's been proving me wrong. He's down there with Uriah Faber and Team Alpha Male, like the only fighter they still have left kicking. But Uriah Faber will be in that corner this weekend, and he is really good, Roland. I just feel like this is a huge leap. When you name the last three losses for Peter Yan. I mean, that's no regular three
If
loss
you want
skid.
to name the three before that, I can. It's Corey Sandhagen, Aljamain Sterling the first time where he illegal kneed him, and Jose Aldo. I mean,
Yeah,
it's the who's who.
it's the who's who. It's Hall of Famers. It's the top of that division, like we said. And then you're seeing him at -125 against, yes, a young prospect, but wins against Chris Gutierrez, Ricky Simon, Corey Sandhagen. He lost to him. We know Corey Sandhagen is of that tier of Peter Yan and those other guys. You would like to think he only loses to those guys. So having a loss to him, and that was by doctor stoppage. Some might say it was a little bit controversial. Herb Dean was the ref for that fight. We know Herb Dean's gotten worse as his career has aged, but I
He just
like
gave
Peter
somebody a
Yan
red
now,
card.
bro. Yeah, yeah. I like Peter Yan. I've switched over. I think that this is one where there's levels. And Peter Yan's only 30 years old. He's not very old. Yes, this guy's 25. He's a newcomer, but he hasn't fought anybody of Peter Yan's caliber. Peter Yan is a guy who is, title aspirations, and like we talked about, that three-loss skid is just the guys that have been champions or are about to fight for belts in Marab. So I think Peter Yan, gets back on track here with the win against Song Yadong at -125. That's all day for me.
Well put, Ben. Couldn't say it any better myself. We're aligned on this first fight. I think this is a good get right spot for Peter Yan. And I do agree. You got to look at the track record here and who they fought. Peter Yan has fought a murderer's row of opponents, and he's held up pretty well for the most part. Yes, he lost against Sean O'Malley, but that was a close fight. And it's just crazy how different his career is today because of that illegal knee. I mean, before that, he was running through Aljamain Sterling. We probably wouldn't have gotten a rematch because he was kind of dominating Aljo at that point, if you remember how the fight was going. So just,
Yeah.
looking back at history, it's crazy how his career trajectory's kind of changed. But I say all that to say that I think he's a determined fighter right now. He wants to get a W on his record. He knows the quality of fighter that he is. And Song Yadong, while he's a good prospect, he's a guy that gets in a lot of firefights, and I think this kind of sets up pretty well for Peter Yan in terms of a stylistic matchup as well. So I want to see Peter Yan mix it up, kind of fight similar to how he fought against O'Malley, even though that ended up in a loss for him. But just
A
in terms of
robbery.
just in terms of not, getting rocked or caught in anything crazy, although he is a pretty durable guy. So I like Peter Yan in this matchup. Agree with Ben. There's levels to this at this stage in the game. And let's see if the Russian can get back on track. 3-fight losing streak. Would not expect that out of him. So the next fight, similar, what am I theme here in terms of vet versus newcomer or up and comer, if you will, in some cases. We got Gilbert Burns, the Brazilian, plus 140, 34 years old. He's a warrior. Every time he goes out, lays it all out there against the up and comer JDM, Jack Della Maddalena. Hopefully I said that right. He is the favorite in this fight. A little surprising to me at 166 here. I'm guessing this is on DraftKings. I have their last couple fights pulled up here.
The
Gilbert
line's gone up
Dominion.
also, Roland. Madalena's
Oh,
closer to 2-1 favorite.
ooh. So Burns' last outing was against Bilal Muhammad. We all know how that went. Bilal won unanimous decision. Gilbert Burns got injured during that fight, so not taking anything, but he was injured last time out. Hopefully he's healthy. Last 2 wins before that, though, Masvidal and Neil Magny. And before that, he had that all-out war with Hamza, who some people thought lost that fight to Gilbert Burns. And then JDM, he has a pretty clean track record here. Last 3, not the big names, but still 3 W's nonetheless. He beat Kevin Holland in a split decision. And then he's got Basil Chavez and Randy Brown, who's a well-known name here around the UFC. So, Ben, I'm going to, toss it to you again. Do you like the value here on the veteran and Gilbert Burns?
I do. I like the value. I like the dog. He's closer to plus 160 now. And I mean, Madalena's last 2 fights have gone to split decision. And,
Yep, good point.
Kevin Holland we know that he's good, but he's not of that level of, top 5 fighters. Gilbert Burns is a top 5 fighter. I think most people would say that unanimously. This is another one, man. I like these lines on these vets. I like Gilbert Burns at plus money, and I don't think that Maddalena is going to finish him. Like, I mean, we've seen his last two go to decision, both been split decisions, and like we said, not against the best competition. So I don't think that he's earned the right to be a 2-1 favorite against the likes of Gilbert Burns. So I'm going to take the dog shot here, and I'm going with Burns in this fight.
Ben,
Big
I
age difference,
promise.
though. I will say that.
Yeah, 34 to 26. Good call out there. I promise you, we will probably differ later on in the card, but not here. I'm aligned with you again. I like Gilbert Burns, and we talked about it before. UFC 299 absolutely loaded, and the reason why we're saying that is because we both feel, or fans in general feel like these fights can go either way. These are toss-up fights for the most part. If you really break it down, this is a 3-round fight. Anything can happen. Ben, you mentioned Gilbert Burns, perennial, top 5 fighter for the most part. Did mention his loss the last time out, but for the most part, he's always game. JDM still hasn't shown me enough. Ben, you mentioned the 2 split decisions, hasn't been too convincing. I know he has a lot of weight behind his name. He's been a guy that the UFC's been pushing a little bit lately. But give me Gilbert Burns to show that he's still there competing for this welterweight title. I don't know if he'll ever reach gold, but I think he's going to show that he still proves to be up there, along with the top couple of names in that division. But yeah, Ben,
I've
in these close fights, you got to take the dog, right?
Yeah, for like it's just maybe Madalena deserves to be a slight favorite, but when we're talking about, I know here the line says minus 166, but I can assure you that the money has come in on Madalena, and that line's not there anymore. It's closer to 2-1. Gilbert Burns is game, and he doesn't really get finished, aside from the Usman shot, but he's game. What I will say, I've been watching the UFC embedded, and I have this theory about those guys that have that lip thing, bro. And Madalena has that, and those guys are dogs. I will say this is not going to be an easy fight by any means. I just feel like Gilbert Burns is very well rounded. He can handle his own in there, and he's not a guy that gets put out. So if it's a 3-round fight, I mean, I like him on the big stage. When the lights are bright. Madalena, definitely a guy that a lot of people have as a prospect, a guy that they see fighting for the belt one day. For me, I'm just not there yet on him. This could be the performance that puts him over the top, and he takes care of Gilbert Burns, and everybody buys in. But I'm just not bought in yet on Jack de la Lena.
Do you see this fight standing the whole 3 rounds, or do you see? And I mentioned this because I want to say before his last couple fights, were really before he hit the big stage, Gilbert Burns mixed it up a little bit. We've seen him, throwing his hands a lot more, but he's been a guy I feel like on the come up. He incorporated his ground game a little bit. What are your thoughts
Yeah.
on how this fight goes?
No, you're right. And I think that if it does go to the ground, I think it's going to be Gilbert Burns being the guy that takes it there. I don't think he's going to get it there early in the fight. I think if he gets it to the ground, it's probably going to be in the second or third. But I do hope that he still has the energy to be attempting those takedowns at that point. Like the Madalena split decisions are because he's just out there, fighting stand up, and rounds can go either way. We know how Holland, can make a round look really good and go his way. So
Yep.
he's been fighting in stand-up fights going to those split decisions. I think that Gilbert Burns can mix it up, and it would be in his best interest to mix it up. Maybe steal around by holding Madalena down and getting some ground and pound in. I don't think that Gilbert Burns finishes the fight, but I definitely think that he can win 2 rounds against this guy. Gilbert Burns is a fighter that has pretty good IQ for the most part.
For sure, and I don't want to contradict you with what I'm about to say with a good IQ, but I also think he's the guy who has a little bit. His screws are a little bit loose. Like he's a gamer, and so once he gets in that pocket, he lets his hands go and he throws, and he's shown that his hand game has gotten better throughout his career. I mean, he's put some guys down. I mean, he knocked down Hamzat, he knocked down Usman in their fight, so he has some power behind those punches. But I do agree, it would be in his best interest to mix it up. It's just Gilbert Burns. He strikes me as a guy like if he gets in that mode, he's just gonna let it go. So interesting fight and another toss up like we just talked about. But we're both on the dog. Let's see if we're both aligned on this next fight. To be honest, I still don't know who I'm picking. So we'll go from there. It's Kevin Holland versus Michael Venom Page. He finally made the crossover. He was in Bellator. He's had a lot of viral knockouts. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen him on YouTube or on the ESPN Top 10 with some of the knockouts, or he's also been knocked out in viral fashion as well. But Michael Venom Page makes the crossover, stops in a bare knuckle, fought Michael Perry for a little bit, now fighting Kevin Holland in his UFC debut. Great stylistic matchup. Kevin Holland, never know what you're going to get, but for the most part, he's a striker. He has shown to incorporate the wrestling a little bit more lately. Although he's another guy, like I just mentioned with Gilbert Burns, with the screws being a little loose, that you just don't know what you're going to get on fight night. Probably to the 10th degree with this guy, because I know Ben mentioned Burns' IQ, which I agree, but Kevin Holland here, truly never know what you're going to get from him. A very skilled fighter. He is the incumbent here, meaning he is the UFC resident fighter. He's the guy that's been in the UFC. And I do agree in terms of promotions, there are levels. And I think jumping from Bellator to the UFC is a big step up. So in that regard, Holland here. I know I said I was a little unsure and I wanted to give my take because I didn't want to be swayed with Ben's pick, although I still might, sway coming into fight night if we disagree here. But I like Kevin Holland if he can incorporate a little bit of the wrestling, although I don't expect him to. I just think he's going to get in one of these like, hey, man, we're just going to go out and strike here and see what happens against Venom Page. But, I do think in terms of the promotion, Kevin Holland being with the UFC, he's fought better guys throughout his career. No disrespect to Venom Page's track record, but he did get stopped by Michael, or he got knocked down by Michael Perry and bare knuckle. I like Kevin Holland to touch him up a little bit here. What do you think, Ben? Am I completely nuts here?
You're completely nuts with mentioning Kevin Holland and wrestling in the same sentence. I think
well, he has proven
to
take down a little bit.
Yeah, but we're past that. He's proven that early on, and after he was being the one getting taken down by all the Dagestanis, then he started wanting to take people down. But he's past that. He got in that gentleman's agreement with Wonder Boy
yeah.
of no takedowns. If you do that with Wonder Boy, why aren't you going to do that with Michael Venom Page? And then everybody talks about how great of a striker Venom Page is. Holland wants to put him out and just prove that. Kevin Holland has the fight IQ of my Roomba, and that thing just crashes into the walls all day, bro. Like that I don't know. I guess I got ripped off because I don't have a smart Roomba. But Kevin Holland has the fight IQ of my Roomba. It's just non-existent. You don't know what you're gonna get. Like you don't know what you're gonna get at all.
So strike for strike, who do you like? If they're standing up.
Trying to draw bars here, Roland. I definitely think that Holland has the more power, but when you go back and look at Michael Venom Page's, he beat Godi Yamaguchi. I know a lot of people don't know who that is, but he won by leg kicks. So he is a guy that mixes it up. We know Holland is a big body, and he's there to be hit. Holland will take one to give one. I do think Holland carries more power. He's a younger guy. I mean, MVP's 36. That is pretty old, bro. That is pretty old, but his style, he fights a pretty safe style to where he hasn't been, TKO'd. He's lost a split decision to Logan Storley. Storley, we know, has fought for the title in Bellator. Wins against Douglas Lima, Derek Anderson. So this is definitely a step up for Michael Venom Page, but stylistically, I think that this fight kind of matches up for him. He's definitely the higher fight IQ guy up against Kevin Holland, but Kevin Holland's a wild card. I mean, we've seen him knock guys out from full guard, with him on his back. So you really don't know what you're going to get. He carries serious power. I'm sticking with my MVP pick. That was my pick early on. I love the lines on these fights, bro. I really love the lines. Like, it's a lot of close lines. I know that they're going to get a little steeper as we get into the later fights, but I really dig the lines on these fights.
Yeah, so alas, me and Ben have split. We're not aligned on this fight. Ben is going to take the short dog with Michael Venom Page. And honestly, I'm really risking it. I may end up passing for the sake of the show. I'm taking Kevin Holland. I'm saying passing in terms of I don't know if I'll put my own money on this because you really can't trust Kevin Holland when it comes down to it. But for the sake of the show, I do like Kevin Holland here. Let's go to the next one. And I know I've been trying to get the nicknames in here, and I would be remiss if I did not get the nicknames for both of these guys. I'm going to start with the Frenchman. It's Benoit, the God of War, Saint Denis. He's a former French super military person. I don't know the phrase
Yeah,
for
like
that.
special units or
Yeah,
Green Beret.
special unit army guy, and then Dustin the Diamond Poirier matching up here. These odds, like Ben said, have gotten a little steep. I know it did not open like this because we talked about this a few weeks ago with Ron on the air, and we were talking about Dustin Poirier closer to Pick'em. It was like plus 115. So a lot of people are coming in on Saint Denis. There's been a lot of retirement talk for Dustin Poirier. A lot of every fight can be my last fight. Most recently, I saw a clip of him saying that, this fight really does excite him because he just wants to see if he's still got it. So I don't know what you make of those words, but his last couple fights, Gaethje, Chandler, Oliveira, he's 1-2, losing to Gaethje and Oliveira. And before that, he had the 2 wins against Conor McGregor. So this guy's fought the who's who, and he's going up against Saint Denis, who's the favorite. He's a pretty aggressive fighter for the most part. I've seen him fight a couple of times. Ben, I'll let you elaborate on him. But the last fight against Frivola, pretty good fight. Came out and got the job done. Ben, what are your thoughts on this fight? Dustin Poirier, he's a gamer. He's another guy that loves to stand in the pocket. He's not afraid to get shook. We've seen him in some all-out wars. Still a relatively young guy in terms of his age, but in the terms of the UFC, I mean, he's talking about making the walk for the 32nd time or something like that. So he's reaching Cowboy Cerrone status or almost in terms of UFC walks. What are your thoughts on this fight? Do you love the value like I might on the veteran here? Excuse me.
Yeah, yeah. Man, in this
Great fight.
one,
Great fight.
it's a hell of a fight because neither one of these guys have been in a boring fight. I mean, we know what Poirier brings, and this dude Saint Denis, he's mean, bro. Like, and his ears are cauliflower, like, bro, like he's one of those dudes that you avoid when you see the cauliflower. This dude, he's a savage. He's a savage, bro. He has a win on here 3 fights ago by face crank. Like he said, fuck getting the choke in. Let me just try and break this guy's face, and the dude tapped. He's a mean dude, mean dude. So in this one, Roland, man, it's a huge step up because you're talking about his last win was against Matt Frivola, a guy that
Steamroller.
fought, yeah, steamroller Frivola out of Ray Sarah Longo. But I mean, we're talking about a guy who was on Dana White Contender Series fighting Luke from back home. Shout out Luke. But that was who he beat to get into the UFC. And and then we're talking about Dustin Poirier, and this is a huge jump, huge jump. But the fight style, the way he fights, he's aggressive, forward pressure. I think Poirier is not going to have any room to breathe in this fight. I think that if it gets taken to the ground, it's going to be by Saint Denis. And even the nickname, bro, the God of War. Like I know
God
that's
of
a
War.
video game. I think PS5 people fuck with it, but I've never really played it. But that's a hard nickname for an MMA fighter. I think that this guy is next up, and I mean he's 30 years old, so he's got to get to it. But if he wins this fight, I mean he's up there to be fighting. Maybe one more fight before a title shot, and this guy's a savage. I think this guy's the truth. I think that at minus 205, it is steep against Dustin Poirier on the other side, but this is a parlay piece that any college basketball game that you like on Saturday, NBA game, you just parlay Saint Denis
A
with all of them.
parlay piece.
It's a
A
parlay
parlay piece, Ben.
It's a parlay piece.
This man, I think this is another toss-up fight, and this is a fight that I'm gonna side. I'm gonna take.
I think this is a 5-rounder too, Roland, if I'm not mistaken.
Well,
I think
we
this is
need
that
let's
co-main
see
event
let's see if we
they
can
made a
fact check
5-rounder.
that. Let's see if we can fact check that, because if that's the case, I like Dustin Poirier a little bit more. He's a guy that I feel like gets a little bit better as the fight goes on. He has a couple of different wins. Like he catches his wind a couple of different times throughout the fight. Definitely, kind of a streaky guy, if you will. He has his moments, and like I said in the beginning, he has his moments where he scares you as well. And I'm gonna say I have a little bit of bias over the years. I have grown to like Dustin Poirier. He's had some good fights in the past. Like Ben said, he's never been in a boring fight. He's had some of the best rounds, like some of the more memorable rounds altogether. I mean, I know he just last got knocked out by Justin Gaethje. Got to wonder if that has a little bit of an effect. But this is skinhead Dustin Poirier. He shaved it. He's
Oh,
bald
shit.
again, like in his younger days. He's going to stand in the pocket. I think this might be a little bit of a jump up in competition for Saint Denis. I know he's going to be just all over Dustin Poirier. I don't see this fight going to the ground necessarily, but I do agree with Ben where Dustin Poirier is not going to have a lot of room to breathe because this guy's going to come out firing. I think if Dustin Poirier can weather the storm, like we've seen in some of these other fights where the veteran gets rushed a little bit early. I'm thinking about the Hermanson fight that just happened a couple of weeks ago. Just weather that, stay in the pocket a little bit, get through, and you'll get yourself a victory. So I like Dustin Poirier here. It's a little worrisome because he sounds like it's like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, but Dustin Poirier is an absolute gamer. I don't think he would be taking this fight if he wasn't going to go full throttle. I think he might be 1 foot in, 1 foot out in terms of whether or not he's going to retire. Like he's mentioned, every fight can be a retirement fight. He thinks about his family. He's a family guy. I know he commits and he goes out to Florida when he's training for his fights. He's from Louisiana, so that weighs on him a lot. So Dustin Poirier, I know there's a lot going on there, and that maybe that plays into why the line has gotten so steep. But I just like the
It is a
value here.
five
And what?
rounder. I just confirmed. It is a
Okay,
5 rounder.
5 rounder. Give me Dustin Poirier. He's going to finish him in the 4th round, plus
Yeah,
170. Let's
this
go.
this one definitely doesn't see the cards, especially as a 5 rounder. But damn, Joey Daly hating on the nickname. Come on, bro.
But man, this fight, it's gonna be one of those ones that makes you a little bit nervous before it starts, just because you know that both of these guys are gonna go in there and try and take each other's heads off.
Bro, I don't
At
think this
least where
fight's
they
gonna be
can.
close. I don't think it's gonna be close.
Man, so you think DP gets put out just
I
like that, first 2 rounds?
I
Because
think
that's when
he's
it's gonna
gonna.
have to happen.
I think it's first or second round, but I think he's just gonna bully him, bro. Like just bully him. Uncomfortable positions. I know Dustin is tough. Joey's mentioning that he's never seen Saint Denis fight. I'm sure he'll be watching this Saturday, so it's gonna be a good first impression when he beats up a dude like Dustin Poirier. But I
I
honestly
just
don't
can't
think
believe you're
that this
so
fight's gonna
confident
be
with the
close,
parlay
bro.
piece.
I'm saying like pick whatever and just parlay it with them. Two-teamer, two-teamer, two-teamer. Put it in all of them, bro.
Oh my gosh, I'm not gonna be able to do that with you. I mean, like I said, part of this is a bias because I have grown to like Dustin Poirier. Think he's a cool guy.
I
Always
like him
gives you a good
too.
sound bite. But oh man, and yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that because the more I go, the crazier I'm gonna sound
I
with
haven't bought
my
into
fan
the other
fiction.
younger guys that have been favored, like the Madalena. I went with the dog in this one. I think that they're right, bro. This guy he's different. He is different.
He's really been in the trenches, if you know what I mean. He's really been
Facts.
in
The
the trenches.
competition isn't there, but that's just because it hasn't been put in front of him. I think that's
I
it's
feel
just.
you. I feel you.
I think that this is going to be a big coming out party. And Dustin Poirier is a guy that has a lot of fans. People do people do watch UFC to watch Dustin Poirier fight. So it's not going to be a good look. Going to be a lot of sad people, going into the main event after this one.
You're very
But
confident right now, Ben. It's great. You're very
he's going
confident.
to be putting people on notice. Saint Denis, like they're going to know the name after that one.
All right, all right. Well, this is why the fights have to happen. They don't happen on paper. Actually, got to get in the octagon and settle it. So we'll see about this one on Saturday night. Me and Ben have disagreed on the last 2 fights, right? Or has it been the last 3? But I feel like we haven't agreed since the first 2. So we'll see. I have a feeling we're probably going to disagree again on this one. But this fight. It has everybody excited, so we got to break it down to the fullest, or at least to the best that we can. We got Sugar Sean O'Malley. Got a little bit of an update on the rankings there. He's the champion going up against Cheeto Vera, Marlon Cheeto Vera. Got to say his full name. Sean O'Malley is the champ. The last time we saw him, he put out Aljamain Sterling. Before that, we mentioned it earlier with the Peter Yan fight, won a controversial split decision in Abu Dhabi against Peter Yan. Goes up against Marlon Vera. This is a part two. The last time we saw this, Chito Vera put him out by, what do you want to call it? Like a nerve,
He broke
kick,
his leg.
shut off his leg, pinched a nerve or something. Sean O'Malley just kind of just fell down, started taking a beating, called the fight. It was over in the second round. Before, or after they matched up, he had a couple of highlight knockouts. Not going to go through all of them. Biggest name on that list before Peter Yan, probably Munoz. If I'm misspoken there, Ben, correct me. And then we got Marlon Vera. Ben, do you want to introduce your boy?
Yeah, Chito, man. I mean, we went out and saw him fight in San Antonio. We were very let down because Corey Sandhagen was trying to impregnate him on the ground for 25
Let's not say
minutes.
that.
30 minutes. No, that's what happened, bro. It was a horrible fight thanks to Corey Sandhagen, and that's why Corey Sandhagen got passed up for this title shot because we know that Chito Vera is always in good fights. He's not in bad fights. Bad things happen when Chito Vera fights because this is a guy who's never been knocked out, never been knocked down in a fight, never been finished in a fight. You know what I mean? So he's a tough dude. Joey in the comments is saying, bro, these are all toss-ups. I think that this fight is a toss-up, but then you look at the odds, and the odds tell you a whole different thing. Like, I already think that Chito's gonna beat him just because, like, shout out David Goggins, but he's just harder than O'Malley. Like, I think that he's just gonna break him over 5 rounds of 5 minutes, 25 minutes. I think that Chito finds a way to stop him having that much time. We know that he's a slow starter. He'll lose the first round. It's not going to look too good. For sure, O'Malley wins that first round when Chito's, trying to get that range down. But as the fight goes on, Chito gets better. We know that he's a guy, he's been in a lot of these fights with serious strikers, guys like Rob Font. And Chito doesn't wear damage. Like, when he gets hit, he doesn't really wear damage. He doesn't get these big bruises. He doesn't cut easy. So I think the first round, O'Malley is going to, get the better of him. But I think this is a toss-up fight. We know Chito's already beat him once, and then you're getting plus 220. And now I know O'Malley's up to like minus 300, if I'm not mistaken. So in this one, this is Chito for me. I'm going with the dog here. A little bit of a biased pick. I will say I'm not the biggest O'Malley fan. I didn't like the way he acted after losing to Chito and saying it didn't count. Like, he's going to be throwing those kicks again to the leg. That shit's coming. And the other thing is, like, Chito's beaten him once already. So the confidence that he's going into this fight with, knowing he's already defeated this guy, broken him, had him fall to the ground because he couldn't stand anymore. I just think that it's going to bring a little more confidence, and he's just going to feel it in there because he's already beaten this guy. So I really like Chito. I love him at these odds, and I'll be on Chito Vera. I'll be playing him somehow, either by finish, just at bigger odds, or definitely money line. But I think Chito beats O'Malley.
Part of what I'm about to say is A, because I think Sean O'Malley is going to win this fight, and B, because I kind of see some of what you mentioned from the other side, particularly when it comes to Marlon Vera and his last couple of fights. I think he's kind of found himself behind on the scorecards on some of those fights. I mean, even the Frankie Edgar, he knocked him out. Dominic Cruz was kind of a closer fight till he caught him.
3-round fights.
I know, but what I'm saying is, he's a slow starter. He doesn't throw a lot. So I think he can find himself down pretty easily 3-0, 4-0. And then really kind of similar to the Sandhagen fight. The only thing that gives me pause is that with the Sandhagen fight, Sandhagen, like Ben said, in terms of, trying to impregnate him, was incorporating the wrestling. And I don't see Sean O'Malley necessarily doing that. I don't think I've ever seen him attempt a takedown in my since I've watched him fight. So that's not going to happen. Ben mentioned, and I saw this looking at Chito's track record too, is the guy has never been put out in his whole career, never been knocked out. And that's O'Malley's method of victory. I think O'Malley, I think O'Malley has shown, though, even though it was a controversial decision, I think he's shown that he can stand in the pocket. He can get a little grimy, if you will, take a couple cuts, take a couple hits, similar to how he did in that Peter Yan fight. Regardless of what you thought about the outcome, I would say personally, I think Peter Yan is better than Marlon Vera. I think partially why this fight is happening is because of the history that they have. O'Malley was asking for this fight. He wanted Marlon Vera. He wanted to correct that loss, even though he still considers himself undefeated. He's still, walking around Miami with the zeros, walking around as if he doesn't have that one loss. But the odds, like Ben mentioned, a little out of control here. Personally, I'd probably put O'Malley in a parlay. I don't know about all my parlays because I do think this is closer to a toss up just because of what we've seen the last time. Marlon Vera is a durable fighter, but he just does not throw volume. He just doesn't. You can look back at the CompuBox or whatever you want on a lot of his fights. I mean, the Rob Font fight, I think he pretty much dominated that fight. But Marlon Vera, he throws with pop. I'll give him that. Everything that he throws looks like it hurts. So I will give him that. There's a reason why he, leg kicked Sean O'Malley to death the first time that they fought. So I do acknowledge all of that. But I think Sean O'Malley is going to be a little too skillful for him on the feet. I think he's going to, stay at range a little bit, and he's going to do enough to either. I don't think he's going to put him out necessarily, just because it's never happened before. But I like O'Malley to win this on the cards. Probably, like I said, I think Marlon Vera can find himself down pretty easily, 3-0, 4-0, depending on how he chooses to start this fight. So give me Sean O'Malley, and it's partially biased because I am an O'Malley fan, and two, because what I've seen from Marlon Vera is a slow starter, and I think that can bite him in the butt here. So I know we disagree, Ben, but do you see
Yeah,
O'Malley, winning on the cards potentially, or you don't see that happening at all?
I just don't see you getting to the cards because in 25 minutes, that's too much time for Chito. Like we see him most of the time finish these fights. Yes, he's coming from behind, but in 3 round fights, finish them and with an extra 2 rounds. Like this is a guy, and both of them, because O'Malley's cardio is elite as hell too. But I just feel like Chito can fight in deeper water. Like if he just drags O'Malley into that deeper water and makes it nasty and roughs up that leg and it's too much time, bro. I feel like in 25 minutes he'll find a finish, and I think that he does finish O'Malley again. That's why I said I didn't know if I was going to play it, with Chito by finish or just the money line. Probably a little bit of both, depending on what the odds for finish are, right? Because you're already getting like plus 260, plus 270 on based off what the odds are now. So if you're gonna get like plus 500 on Chito by TKO, plus 600 maybe, sprinkle a little bit on that too. But I think that that's too much time for him not to find a finish.
So, just real quick, and I think I know your answer, but I just want to ask about it because it was in the headlines, and I think Cheeto even talked about it a little bit today at the press conference. What do you make? And maybe this is why the odds have shot up a little bit. What do you make of Aljo's comments saying that through some guys that he's trained with and that he knows from inside the Cheeto camp that he necessarily hasn't had the best camp and the lead up to this fight? Do you put any weight behind that, or do you just think it's Aljo just being Aljo on his podcast?
Yeah, I hadn't heard of it yet. So I mean, I'm not saying it's not true, but like I said, I just think that he's coming in with confidence already because he's beaten O'Malley, and he knows like he didn't win a decision. O'Malley couldn't stand anymore. Like he physically busted up his leg, bro. So I feel maybe he hasn't had a great camp. We know he's not injured. We know he has the same coach. He hasn't done anything to switch up, his corner or anything like that. So I'm not putting much attention into it.
Okay, fair enough. And yeah, Cheeto, he shot it down as you would expect him to. Just saying that Aljo is just looking for some attention. Um, I mean, the other thing I wanted to ask, and maybe we're getting too far ahead of ourselves, but do you think that either of these guys would hold up as the champion after this fight?
Nah, based off what we know of who's next, I don't think. I mean, I hope Cheeto wins so he can hold the belt, but it doesn't matter who fights, who wins this one because whoever's fighting Marab next, I'm sorry, boys, but that's gonna be that's different. Hey Roland, can you put up Mondo's first comment? Shout out Ron. Ron flew out to Vegas today. But what's Mondo? How about some positive vibes here, pal?
Yeah, throwing the
For
sauce over
sure,
here.
Ron has already blown
No
through
one
half of
likes
his
that.
bankroll in Vegas. Not
No one
even
likes
4
that.
hours in Vegas. Mondo's already hating like that. Come on, Dukes. Be better.
Mondo's also on Sugar Sean
Yeah,
O'Malley
be
here.
better, Mondo. Be better. All right, Mondo. The comments are getting worse and worse.
And shout out to Marab because he just fought, was it last week or the week before? And he's gonna weigh in. He's weighing in tomorrow to
Yeah,
be the potential backup
guaranteeing his
fighter.
shot. He's guaranteeing his that he's up next. I think with that.
Yeah, so Marab, I just wanted to ask that question because O'Malley has already acknowledged that if he wins, then Marab's got next. He's said that he's legitimized himself in the octagon and also likes what he's done on social media in terms of building himself up. And I agree. I think Marab has been one of the ascending stars in terms of social media and just really just putting himself out there. And for a guy that's a foreigner, he's from a small country in Georgia. I mean, to do what he's doing at the rate that he's doing it, I got to give him props for sure. Gotten himself noticed enough to where O'Malley has acknowledged it and said that he feels that he's done enough to get the fight. I mean, the matchmakers are going to make the fight, but if the champ is saying that, you got something going for you.
Oh, and
So
he
Ben,
stole his jacket. So there's a
yeah,
little
and he
bit
stole his
of
jacket. Got a little history there for sure.
yeah. There's history.
Uh, But man, this fight, I agree with you. I think the odds have gotten a little out of hand. I mean, minus 270, close to minus 300. You can no longer bet O'Malley straight up. At least I don't think you can. I know in boxing, people lay a little bit more juice in these fights. So maybe you can find somebody who's willing to lay that closer to minus 300. But I do think it's gotten a little out of hand for my taste. I mean, I think, and I heard it on a podcast earlier, and I agree. When it comes to UFC favorites, I think you got to take them early because more times than not, you're gonna miss out on the value, and you'll end up looking at a minus 300. I'd say that to say that I think I saw O'Malley a couple of weeks ago under minus 200 for sure. It was like
Yeah,
minus
and
180 or something like that.
but that's the thing. Like a guy with O'Malley, a guy like O'Malley, also he's like Connor. Like all the money that comes in for the fight is gonna be on him. So it's. I think it's only gonna get steeper. I haven't put in my Cheeto ticket yet. I'm the guy that likes to do it the day of the fight.
And for the
For the
underdog, that
most part,
works.
yeah, for the underdogs that works. And like I said, when it's fights like this, I mean, I don't mind parlaying it. You know, so I'm waiting. I'm hoping that I can get closer to 3-1 with Chito. That'd be awesome. But I definitely do think that the money that's going to come in is going to come in on O'Malley because he is the superstar on the card. He's the guy that's going to be carrying the card. When it comes to bringing in viewership and whatnot.
For sure. And, it's just a crazy thing to think that, Sean O'Malley, he's had a pretty quick ascension. I know he was, picking his fights pretty much up until the Peter Yan fight when he decided to take a really big leap in terms of his competition. And then that, thrust him into the title picture against Aljo. Um, but it's just crazy to think that he can have captured gold so quickly. And, he's standing, he's looking at Chito Vera, a guy who's beaten him. And then after that, he's got Marab, who I think we both think would be favored in a potential fight against either of these guys. So I just say all that to say that you got to capitalize on your time at the top, see how long you can stretch it out, because the UFC, it's just a grind, I think, to stay at the top, especially at some of these lower weight classes. What do you think about that, Ben? Do you think
Yeah.
O'Malley is just like a flash in the pan, or what do you think
No,
here?
I think he's already cemented. I mean, once you have guys from other weight classes that are champions calling you out, I definitely think that he's already
So you think
he's
he's a
like
pound for pound
McGregor.
guy? Do you think he's pound for
Uh
pound necessarily, or no?
well, I mean, we can't deny it at the way that he's been winning, right? He does have that loss to Chito, and if he loses to Chito again, I'd say no. But what I'm saying is, even if he loses, I think that he already has like that, where fighters are always calling out Dustin Poirier, whether he's champ or not champ. Like he has that name recognition. He's gonna bring in he brings in that young crowd. He's sponsored by Happy Dad, does the commercials for them. Like the demographic that he brings for the UFC is all of those guys, those younger streamers that Dana White hangs out with. So this is their darling. You know what I mean? So I just feel like this guy's always going to have a fight as long as he's in the UFC, whether it's for a belt or not a belt.
For sure. So, Sean O'Malley, definitely a name that's going to be around. I guess I was just talking more so about gold. Like, I mean, I'm just talking about the, the gold standard and like keeping that belt around your waist. Like, do you think this is the only time that he's going to touch gold, or do you see
Well,
that
I
like
mean, I
he's
think Marab's going to have a decent run, but I like I said, if Chito beats him, then you know he beat Aljo, and we know Aljo's legit, but Aljo's pretty one dimensional as well. You
and he
know,
was
and
reaching in that fight?
and he was reaching, and he went in there very emotional and all that shit. Like that's the other thing. Chito doesn't go in there emotional. Marab doesn't go in there emotional. These are I mean, Aljo's a professional, but Aljo, it's like he has his podcast. Like he's confusing, bro.
Oh yeah,
Aljo's
Aljo's a funny
confusing.
guy. He's a
He's
funny guy.
confusing, and I was a fan of Aljo when everybody was hating on Aljo, back in the day. But he's just a guy that he's confusing, man, and he's very one dimensional. So I did pick him to beat Sean O'Malley, and O'Malley made him look like a fool. Like he punked him, he sunned him. You know what I mean? But this is a different fight. This is a striker. This is a guy that's going to stand with him. So O'Malley, is he? Is it a flash in the pan? Is it? I don't want to say it's a flash in the pan because he's very good and the height for
Yeah,
this
for sure.
division for his. That's why if he wins this one and fights Marab, maybe with the height. I mean, there is more like legs to grab there for Marab, but he's going to be a way bigger guy than Marab. Marab's like 5'6",
Yeah.
5'5". Him and Peter Yan are little dudes. So we'll see. I think we'll get our answer after this weekend. If he loses to
Yeah.
Chito, he was a flash in the pan.
Hey, bantamweight's a fun division for sure. There's a lot going on at 135, and I do agree with you, Ben. I think a lot of the flash in the pan discussion comes down to this fight. If he can right his wrong against Chito Vera and get that W back, I think there's a little bit more weight behind Sean O'Malley, going and continuing to ascend and maybe setting himself up for that fight with Ilya at 145. Whether or not he wins that fight or not, I think he's still got to maybe beat Marab and add to his allure to get a fight at 145 with the champ, depending what happens at UFC 300 with the Max Holloway, depending what we think there. But Ben, anything else you want to chop it up about? I think we got some prelims to talk about to wrap up the night with. Any of these prelims? I know we just talked about Jan and Song, but we got Gamrot, another Frenchman, I believe, against Dos Anjos, RDA.
Yeah, you
Any
can
quick thoughts on
parlay
that fight?
Gamrot with Saint Denis, bro, and that's take that to the window. Gamrot Saint Denis parlay. I was mentioning about the parlay piece. I also like where's Curtis Blades at? Curtis Blades is somewhere on here, isn't he?
I don't see him pictured, but if he's fighting, I'll try and pull it
Curtis
up.
Curtis Blades is fighting Jalton Almeida. So we know Jalton Almeida's that heavyweight who's been on that streak. They're the they're
That's
the
right.
main event of the prelims.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, and I think that fight is a close to a pick 'em. I like Almeida in that fight. What are your thoughts? Blades hasn't
I
fought in
actually
a
like
little while.
Blades.
You like Blades on the
I
comeback? Okay.
Yeah, I like Blades because I think Almeida, I mean, when he gets somebody to the ground, he's going to hold him there. But we know Blades came in as a wrestler. I think if they fight on the feet, I think Blades can touch him up enough to, maybe win a decision. Or I think that it's overs also. I just don't see a finish early in that fight. But I like Curtis Blades. I think Curtis Blades is maybe plus 110 or minus 110. It's a very closely lined fight. That's what I was saying. I love the lines on these fights.
Almeida, his last time out was against Derek Lewis. Am I correct there? Or I want to say it was against Derek Lewis. He kind of just ground
Yeah,
and
but he
pounded
looked
him to
dead.
death.
He looked dead
Yeah,
like in the
exactly.
third
Yeah, he was
round.
just on him. Yeah, he was just laying on him pretty much. No disrespect there, but another fight here, just because it's always entertaining when this guy steps into the octagon. Pereira versus Jake Check kind of looks like the Polish what's the guy's name? I'm blanking out.
Blackowitz.
Blachowicz, yeah, kind of looks like Blachowicz here in this picture. What do you think about Pereira? Have you thought about this fight at all at 185?
I haven't thought about it at all, but it's going to be an exciting fight because even Olojacek, that dude, he's a good striker. So I think that it's going to be a pretty good fight. I don't see it going to the judges. I think somebody's getting finished in that one.
And Ben, you're gonna have to educate me if you've seen this guy fight. I've just seen him come up on my feed a couple of times this week because of his extreme reach. I think it's another Frenchman, if I'm not mistaken. Dispain fighting against Parisian. It's a heavyweight bout at 265. Ben, what's the word on this guy? He looks pretty scary in this picture. Is he another hyped product coming out of France?
He's definitely a very hype product. I think that he's going to be a first rounder bust guy. I think Parisian's live, and I think he's a pretty big dog in this one. This is a heavyweight fight. This is like your freakish guy, but man, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it with him. I'm not going to say that I know the most about it, but I don't think that the line should be that steep.
Dang. Okay, so I'll have to take a look at that. But anything else here on the prelims you want to get into? Munoz, we talked about him a couple times. He was on some of these guys' past track record going up against Phillips. Any thoughts there on another 135 pound bout?
Yeah, I actually like Munoz on that one. That's another closely lined fight. Kyler Phillips came into the UFC, was on a pretty good fight win streak, and I think he lost his last one or two, but I actually like Munoz in this one. He's another guy that's in a bunch of close fights. He's a gatekeeper, like a top 10 gatekeeper,
Yeah.
top 15 gatekeeper, but he's fought the who's who, and he's been in close fights with all of them. I like him to get it done in this one. Give me Munoz.
And just so we're not leaving the females out, I do got to get your thoughts here because she is a pretty popular fighter. She's been called the future for some
The
time now. I
future.
don't know if you can call her that anymore. I think it might be the present now. She is on a little bit of a winning streak, if you will. It's Macy Barber versus Caitlin Sermonara, but I know that's Chukagan. I don't know if she
Chukagan.
recently got married, or Chukagan. I don't know if she recently got married or not. But
Yeah.
they're fighting at 125. Macy Barber still trying to ascend. Do you think we finally see Macy Barber crack into title contention here?
Do you have a line for that one, Roland, or no?
I can pull it up real quick while you give me your thoughts
If
on
you
the
would.
matchup.
Yeah,
I
I'm
know
not the biggest fan
Chukagan
of.
is a wrestler, right? I mean, she's not really known for her
She's a
striking. Or
stand-up chick.
okay, never mind. Let me see
Yeah,
if I can
she's a
get this
stand-up
line.
chick, but I'm not the biggest fan of Macy Barber, bro. I'm really not. I think
Wow.
she's more. What's that? Well, you're
Let me
wowing that
see.
I'm not a fan of her, or what?
No, I'm saying wow at the odds, if this is correct.
What is it? Is it Macy Barber a huge
So
favorite?
opened plus 130 Chukagan, and you can get Barber. I didn't even say the odds. Chukagan plus 130, excuse me, and Barber minus 175. That's what it opened up. Since then, money has come in on Barber. It's minus 200 for Macy Barber, and plus 172 on the comeback for Chukagan. So are you going with Chukagan here in a 3-round fight? Anything can happen.
No, I'm not. I'm not going anywhere with this fight. I think anything can happen. I don't think Macy Barber's that good. I'd probably take the dog for the competition that we do. I'm probably taking the dog there at those odds. Macy Barber, if she can't bully the other girl to the ground, she's not going to win the fight. Chukagan's been around. She's been a top 5 chick. I mean, just based off the division sucking, she's not the greatest either, but at minus 200, that's too steep for Macy Barber for me.
Yeah, minus 200. It's a 3-round fight. And, just looking at I guess the vitals, or a lot, for lack of better words, I mean, Chukagan's 5'8" and Barber's 5'4". I mean, that's a big difference. Barber's got a little bit of a ground to make up there. So maybe that plays into the hands of Chukagan. But we'll see here. I know there's been a lot of hype behind Macy Barber. The promotion wants her to win. So I don't know why, but we'll see. If she gets it done. The only fight we haven't talked about is another guy that we've seen in person. He was there at that San Antonio card. I think it's CJ Vergara
Yeah.
against Almabayev. So might as well just talk about this, Ben. Do you have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, Vergara's from Laredo, so I'm gonna rock with him. I know that he's in close fights usually. When we went, he was able to find the finish in what was a wild fight, but both guys were
Yeah.
rocked. But I'm just gonna go with Vergara for the fact that he's from Laredo.
Yeah, let me see if I can get some odds on that. Wow. I don't know, this is current, but you got CJ plus 425.
Damn it, boy!
The other guy, Asu Alma Bayev,
I don't
minus
know a damn thing
575.
about him, but he must be a wrestler with odds like that.
Yeah, minus 575, under two and
Sheesh.
a half rounds, minus 140 on that one. So
Give me the
we've
under.
officially talked about every fight on this card. I mean, it warrants it with the lineup that UFC 299 presents us. Just gonna run through it real quick. You know, you got Peter Yan versus Song Yadong, Gilbert Burns versus JDM, Kevin Holland versus Michael Venom Page, DDP, Dustin Poirier versus Benoit Saint Denis, and then the title fight, O'Malley versus Marlon Chito Vera. Ben, what's the fight you're looking forward to most? Is it Chito Vera versus O'Malley, or is there another fight
Definitely.
so
Uh,
that's the
the,
one
the,
you just
yeah, the main and the co-main. I'm very happy that they made the co-main a 5 rounder. We know usually only the main event is 5 rounds. I'm glad that they gave that Dustin Poirier and Saint Denis fight 5 rounds. I don't think we're gonna need it, but I wouldn't mind getting into the fourth and the fifth. I think there's gonna be a finish somewhere during that fight, and I think it's gonna be a coming out party. So I'm equally excited for both of them, but if there's ever a chance for Chito Vera to touch gold, this is the shot. Like he's not going to get another one after this. He's not going to get a matchup that's going to fit him, as well as this. So I'm really looking forward to and new, and hopefully Chito Vera gets to raise the belt.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm most excited for this O'Malley versus Cheeto fight, but I think I'll be most nervous for the Dustin Poirier fight, just because there's a lot at stake for Dustin Poirier. Depending how this fight goes, this could be the last time that we see Dustin Poirier in the octagon. We could very well see him put the gloves down on the floor and give us a little bit of a
And
farewell speech.
And remember, Poirier even had that thing where, like, oh no, the fight's off. And then, like, I don't know. I don't think that it was to build it up because he's not that type of guy. He's more of a stand up type of guy. But, like, obviously, he was ready to call the fight off. I think that he's been a guy that's also talked about hanging it up. He's had a lot going on after, he beat McGregor those 2 times. So for Poirier, I just think his career has played out. His best days are behind him. And this is serving him up on a platter for a guy that is going to be in the top 5, for years to come, I think.
Yeah, so a lot to be settled on Saturday night in Miami. UFC 299. Ben, it's been fun chopping it up with you. We've gone close to an hour. Didn't expect for us to go
Right?
this long. But hey, man, UFC 299 is absolutely loaded. I'm sure we'll be back next week to recap it. Justin, Ben, myself, Ron, when he gets back from Vegas, hopefully he's not down half his bankroll right
Yeah.
now and he's
Good luck to
doubled it.
Ron. Good vibes. Good
Hopefully,
vibes.
Mondo, if you're watching this, please send Ron your good vibes, make up for what you said in this comment box over here. But yeah, man, Saturday night's going to be fun. But what I was getting at is when everybody gets back, we're going to talk about some NFL draft prospects, get into that, get into the mix there, see who's going to get drafted where, recap this UFC 299, baseball, basketball, you name it. We talking about sports, and I hope you guys enjoy the fights. We're out.
Peace.